Dennis Rodman once disappeared for 48 hours in the middle of an NBA Finals campaign to party in Las Vegas. He flew to North Korea to hang out with a dictator voluntarily multiple times. And he showed up to his own book signing dressed as a bride in a full wedding gown and married himself in front of a crowd. This isn't a man who lost the plot. This is a man who never gave a shit about the plot to begin with. And here's why you should care, because Rodman's story is actually about something. It's proof that the path to greatness doesn't have to look respectable. Most athletes who reach the top do it by conforming same interviews, same image, same carefully managed public persona. Rodman did it by going in the completely opposite direction. He was more authentically himself than anyone around him. More chaotic, more raw, more honest about who he was, and he won more than almost all of them. 5 championships, 7 rebounding titles. A Hall of Fame career built entirely on his own terms. That's the story. Dennis Rodman was born in 1961, Trenton, New Jersey, but grew up in the housing projects of Dallas, Texas. His father, Philander Rodman, had over 24 children with multiple women across the country and was completely absent from Dennis's life. His mother, Shirley, raised Dennis and his 2 sisters largely alone. By his teenage years, Dennis was invisible. Painfully shy, small for his age, no real direction. His mother eventually kicked him out of the house. Not a dramatic falling out, she just decided he needed to sort himself out. He was homeless in Dallas, sleeping at a local community center, scraping by however he could. He worked nights cleaning the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. He had no qualifications, no prospects, and no reasons exactly to think that things would change. Then he grew. Almost overnight, between 19 and 20, Dennis Rodman shot up from around 5'9" to 6'7". Suddenly, the bloke who'd been too small to make his high school basketball team was built like an NBA player. He started playing seriously for the first time at Cook County College, a tiny junior college in Texas, and was so raw that it took a stint at Southeastern Oklahoma State, an NAIA school, not even Division I, before anyone noticed him. The Pistons selected Dennis in 1986 NBA draft in the second round 27th pick overall. Just a 25-year-old rookie who was cleaning airport floor a few years earlier. The Pistons of the late 1980s were the most physically intimidating team in basketball. Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, Isaiah Thomas, these blokes played with a nastiness that the league had never quite seen before, and Rodman fit right in. He was a defensive weapon from day one, quick feet, obsessive energy, and a pain tolerance that bordered on the disturbing. He'd throw his body into anything, charges, screens, loose balls on hardwood, and get up like nothing happened. But what really set him apart was the rebounding, and the reason the rebounding was so good is because Rodman actually studied it. During warm-ups before games, he would track shooters, watching the arc of their shots, the rotation of the ball where misses tended to land based on the angle of release. He was running calculations while everyone else was just stretching. By tip-off, he already had a mental map of where the ball was likely to go. That sounds like something a coach makes up after the fact to make a player sound smart, but the numbers back it up completely. Rodman led the league in rebounding for 7 consecutive seasons. 7 in a row! At 6'7", against centers and power forwards who were regularly 6'10", 6'11", 250 pounds. The conventional logic said he was too small to dominate the boards at that level. He did it anyway, every single year, through pure intelligence and effort. He won 2 championships with Detroit in 1989 and 1990. The Pistons beat the Lakers, then beat the Bulls. Rodman was a key piece of both runs. Not a star, not a scorer, but the kind of player who made winning possible by doing everything the stars didn't want to do. Right around the peak of his success with Detroit, Rodman's personal life started unraveling in very public ways. He had a brief, turbulent marriage to a model named Annie Bakes in 1992. The marriage fell apart quickly. He became deeply involved with Madonna, who was at the absolute peak of her global fame at the time, and she apparently asked him to father her child. He declined. He was struggling with depression, genuinely. In 1993, he sat in his truck outside the Palace of Auburn Hills with a loaded rifle. A teammate found him there. That night could have ended everything. He's spoken about it in interviews since, not as a story he's ashamed of, but as a turning point. Something shifted after that night. Like, he decided if he was going to still be here, he was going to be here completely on his own terms. The hair started changing colors, the tattoos started multiplying, the earrings went in. The man who had spent his whole life being overlooked and invisible decided to become the most visible person in any room he walked into. He was traded to the San Antonio Spurs in 1993. One season, it was a disaster off the court, missed practices, clashed with management, showed up late, showed up sideways. On the court, he was still exceptional. The Spurs moved him on. Then Phil Jackson and the Chicago Bulls came calling. And this is where the story gets genuinely strange, because Phil Jackson is one of the most zen, controlled, methodical coaches in the history of professional sport, and he decided that Dennis Rodman was exactly what his team needed. Jordan and Pippen were already there. The Bulls had the best player on the planet and one of the best supporting acts ever assembled. What they needed was a rebounder, a defender, someone who could do the dirty work at the highest level without needing the ball or the spotlight. Rodman was perfect, and somehow, impossibly, it worked. Phil Jackson managed Rodman the way no one else had thought to. He gave him breathing room. When Rodman needed to decompress mid-season, Jackson let him take a few days. When he came back, he was locked in. The famous Las Vegas disappearance happened during this era. Rodman vanished for 48 hours during a break in the finals, went to Vegas, did whatever the hell he did in Vegas, and came back and played his ass off. Jackson had to fly out there personally to retrieve him. The Bulls won 3 consecutive championships from 1996 to 1998. Rodman's rebounding and defense were central to all 3. Jordan got the trophies and the magazine covers. Rodman got the rebounds and the nightclubs. During this stretch, he also got married again to Carmen Electra, one of the most famous women on the planet at the time. They wed in Las Vegas in 1998 after knowing each other for about a week. The marriage lasted 9 days before Rodman filed for annulment. He cited fraud and irreconcilable differences. Carmen Electra has said she doesn't fully remember the wedding. In 1996, to promote his autobiography, Bad As I Wanna Be, Rodman showed up to a New York City book signing in a full white wedding dress, tiara included, and announced he was marrying himself. He rode through Manhattan in a horse-drawn carriage. He told the press he was a free spirit who didn't need anyone else to be complete. The book sold over 1 million copies. His NBA career wound down after the Bulls' second three-peat. Brief stints with the Lakers where he famously clashed with everything and everyone, and the Dallas Mavericks where Mark Cuban gave him a shot out of respect for what he'd been. Neither stint amounted to much on the court. But Rodman didn't disappear. He just kept being Rodman. He appeared in films, he did celebrity rehab, he had ongoing, very public struggles with alcohol, he's been arrested, he's been broke despite earning over $27 million during his playing career. He's been to court over child support, he's had long stretches where the people around him were genuinely worried. And then, in 2013, he went to North Korea. Kim Jong-un is a massive basketball fan. Through a series of connections involving a Vice Media documentary, Rodman ended up in Pyongyang and met the Supreme Leader, and they got along. Rodman went back multiple times. He organized exhibition basketball games between American players and North Korean players, essentially acting as an unsanctioned sports diplomat while the US government watched in complete bewilderment. He sat courtside with Kim Jong-un. He sang happy birthday to him on North Korean television. He called him a friend for life in interviews. The US State Department had no idea what to do with this. Human rights organizations were furious. The media didn't know whether to laugh or be genuinely alarmed. Rodman's response to all of it was basically a shrug. He wasn't there as a political statement. He wasn't there for money. He just went because he wanted to, and because apparently Kim Jong-un is good company if you're Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman is not a cautionary tale. He's also not a straightforward hero. He's something more complicated and more interesting than either of those things. He came from nothing, built himself into one of the most effective role players in NBA history through obsessive study and physical commitment, won 5 championships, and then lived his entire personal life like someone who had been told the rules didn't apply to him and was mostly right. There will never be another Dennis Rodman. The league wouldn't allow it now, the media environment wouldn't survive it, and the personality required to pull it off only comes along once. He's one of a kind. Completely, genuinely unhinged, and somehow one of the greatest to ever do it.
We look at Dennis and said, Dennis, what are you gonna do?
He says, well, I need to go to Vegas.
Can your vacation be like 48 hours? Go straight to the airport, boom. They don't hear and see Dennis for 48 hours.
In fucking Vegas.
Said Dennis come back on time.
He didn't come back on time. We had to go get his ass out of bed. You know, and I'm not gonna say what's in his bed and where he was and blah, blah, blah.
There's a knock on the door. It's Michael Jordan.